I think it is so important to have a really clear system that you can work from. And honestly, when you're early in business, especially anything under $100,000 in revenue, um, knowing what to do and when to do it is so important. It's critical. Like you can, for example, um, one thing that is really important that I coach all of my students uh, is increasing their client frequency, right? But that's not the first thing that we do, because if your pricing is off and we go out and do a bunch of marketing and we get 100 more clients to give you money at 50% lower rates than we should be charging, well, that doesn't help anyone. And we've basically grown your business almost into the ground instead of up.
Remember, failure was part of the objective of entering the gym this morning.
Are there things in your business that are worse off for having you involved in them?
How can I use my business as a way to be there for my family more?
Those outputs can only be reined in and intentionally developed or directed by managing the inputs.
Forced us eventually to take over 2 years of our life to dig out of just to get to zero.
You don't have the things from the places you haven't gone to.
Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. The flies come for the poo, right? There's a push-pull effect with all of your marketing, and it needs to be pushing away the customers that are not a good fit and drawing in the ones that are.
Hey, welcome to all of you, Bandits and Chilies. I am with David Elam today, and David and his wife Blanca started and built up a maid service business. They grew it from $8,500 per month to $65,000 per month in 4 years, and then they sold it about 2 years ago for multiple six figures. David and I have both just become FRAP certified coaches through Joshua Latimer's War Plan program. We'll talk about that in a bit. And David and Blanca are also juggling their coaching business around their involvement in their church and raising their 2 kids. So, David, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here. And I'm just ending my work day, and you're just starting yours down in there in Aussie land.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Very cool.
Yeah, so give us a bit of background on your business and just the quick story of who David is and how we got to this point.
Yeah, great question. So honestly, I never expected myself to be in business. Maybe, if you're listening to this podcast, or Mark, maybe even you, like I never saw myself as a businessman. But it seems to be the path that God has given me the last few years. And how we got into it, my wife and I were actually missionaries in Mexico for about 15 months, helping to plant a church down there. And then we came back to Dallas, but we were starting from zero as far as our careers went. So my wife started cleaning houses and quickly got up to about 20 clients. And then about a year later, after a failed business attempt on my part, tried an online business that didn't go anywhere. And we were kind of like, well, what do we do now? So I started helping her in the cleaning business. And then we decided to try to scale it together. And so it was pretty fun. And I really ran that business for, I guess, about 5 years before selling it. And then you mentioned FRAP. We became FRAP certified, and I've actually been coaching people for the last 1.5 to 2 years on the FRAP system. And that really is, those frameworks really are how we grew our business, basically 9x our business within a 4-year period. So we grew from 8,500 to 65,000 a month using a lot of those frameworks from FRAP. And so I'm just a big believer in it. I've seen it work for my students as well. And so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. So there's, we'll come back to the FRAP in a moment, but there's kind of 4 chapters broadly to that business. Like you had the first year or so that it was running, it was not really a focus. And then the last sort of 5.5 years enters into, from that point enters into chapter 2 where it became a focus. And then the last sort of 4 years roughly is when you were getting coached whilst growing it, which is where the majority of that growth happened. And then the last like closing chapter is like the sale process. So you can elaborate on any of those that you want, but like specifically those last two chapters where things really took off with the coaching, what made the difference there? What was your experience with that? And then lessons you learned from the sale.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, when we started coaching, um, number one, we kind of had to make it work at that point. We didn't have any other options. We were literally not exaggerating, my wife and I both were working 60 to 80 hours a week and making about $2,000 a month and blowing through our savings, and like everything was on fire and it was awful. And we had blood, sweat, and tears, very literally. And it was just horrible. It was a really, really hard time. And so we were like, we have to do something different. And so we'd actually had two coaches prior to that, and our business didn't do anything from that coaching. Then
Well,
we,
just quickly, David, two things before you go on. First of all, what I'm noticing as you're telling that story, and I'm watching your face, is just like the smile and the laughter that comes with that story, because it's funny now, right? Not at the time.
right. It wasn't funny then.
No, for sure, not when you're in it. But the second thing is the two coaching experiences, pardon me, that you had that didn't help your business,
Yeah.
right? Why not, right? Like maybe you can even just weave that into like what did, but like what was the difference? What made the difference between why that did not work for your business?
It's a really good question. And I think looking back, a lot of it had to do with they didn't know our industry. And it was just kind of like, okay, try this thing and do this and a little bit of this. And my second coach, even, God bless him, he just was like extremely disorganized. And so we just didn't have a lot of meat on the bone, if you will, with those coaching experiences. So we were kind of like, we had to do something. We didn't know what to do, but if we didn't make this work, like we weren't going to be able to feed our children. I mean, like it was desperate. And so we ended up paying somewhere around 8 grand to some lady that I had found on the internet. And I I actually am a firm believer that when you make that type of investment, it scares you so much that you just take a different level of action too. Um,
Yeah, there's a good line for that I heard recently, which is that transformation happens at transaction.
yeah, yep, it's so true. Yeah, so when you put it all on the line like that, you have to make it work. And so I got down into the modules, I was consuming all these courses and getting my hands dirty, and we very quickly started to implement everything and really just fixing our pricing. Our pricing was horribly off. We were way undercharging, like probably almost all of your listeners are, because as humans, we just tend to undervalue our services grossly. And then uh, especially when you're good-hearted. But nonetheless, we raised our prices about 60% overnight, and nothing bad happened. We lost a couple clients, but they very quickly got replaced by other people that were willing to actually pay what we were worth. And then the next big move we made almost simultaneously was we started just using a very clear sales system, using a sales script and selling clear packages instead of just like, sure, I'll clean your house and I'll do whatever you want, Mrs. Jones, and I'll make, $15 an hour because I don't know how to, it's like when you have a clear checklist and a clear value proposition and you have a target hourly rate that you want to make on all of your cleanings, it becomes so much easier to do business, and you can more clearly demonstrate for your prospects or customers what it is that you do. When we made those two moves, we literally doubled our revenue in 3 months. Now looking back, I mean, it sounds almost crazy and like hard to believe, um, but it's incredible when you make big moves like that, what can happen. And we ended up 4xing that first year after coaching just from implementing automations and better marketing and getting coaching and having happy employees, like just so many little things that make the difference along the way.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that since like that price raise of like 60%, I'm assuming that during that time when you were working, 60 to 80 hours per week, you would have actually been losing money the whole time. Is that a correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, and like that's what's really fascinating about that is right. It's just like it seems if you didn't know any better, you would look at that on paper and think that it's not possible to be working week after week, month after month, losing money and not knowing about it. But it's very
Hmm.
possible, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so then it gets into this state where you're working really hard, you're burning the candle at both ends, you're burning out, and you're the whole time what you're actively working in pursuit of is going backwards.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of that, you scrounge together the $8,000 to join this program, which like basically has to materialize out of thin air because it's the business model isn't working,
Hmm.
and yet the bones of success are all there. Like you have enough of the working pieces. It's just it's just changes to really foundational things like the pricing that made a huge difference in that case. So I just think that that's really interesting. I just wanted to underscore that point of
Yeah.
not knowing your numbers can result in you exerting. You would have been working really like probably harder during the that 3 month period leading up to when you reach that breaking point than you were, say, a year later in the next 3 month period.
Hmm.
And yet the results would be hugely, hugely different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, the more our business grew over the next 4 years, the less and less we worked. In fact, I took a 2 week vacation from my business. I checked my email like once, maybe twice, um, and my team actually did our best month ever while I was away in Florida. So, so it's like when you have the right systems and the right things in place, you can actually work less and make more money,
Yeah, yeah.
which is what we all want. And many times it's hard to believe that it's possible until you've done it, or you really just start to believe, like, okay, if this person is telling me that I can do this and that they've done it and I can see a clear path, I'm just going to go for it. But to your point, yeah, we were losing money and we had 3 employees, so we were trying to keep on payroll. We didn't want them to go hungry, and we didn't want, we were good-hearted people, but it's like you have to put your family first at some point. And so we actually, when we did that, we did end up letting go of 2 of our employees. We actually downsized, and sometimes you have to downsize to upsize, and that's okay. And like if you're listening to this, you need to give yourself permission that if your business is on fire and you're unprofitable, fix your pricing first, but then you may have to go 2 steps backwards so you can go 10 steps forward. And what we were doing was unsustainable, and we didn't really even yes, we realized it, but it's like when you hear someone else tell you, wait a minute, you're working 60 to 80 hours a week, both of you, and you're making like 2000. So in other words, you're making like $5 or $10 an hour. Like you're basically paying yourself nothing. And like when you just think about what that is, it's depressing enough that it makes you want to change. you know it's like going to the psychologist. It's like, well, yeah, I guess I didn't realize just how bad things really were. Or going to marriage counseling or something. And sometimes you just need that reality check. But there's freedom in that. There's imprisonment in denial, but there's freedom in just acknowledging what's there. Once you know what's there and what's in front of you, then you can change it. You can do something about it.
So with regards to the comment that you made about being good-hearted people, I think there's a lot of mental baggage that comes along with people when it comes to money and pricing and all that sort of stuff. Like money is the root of all evil, which is a misquote of scripture that even impacts the psyche of many non-religious people, right? And I think that in that story right there, there's this little example of that where, as a result of you doing what you thought was the good virtuous thing to do, but without proper information about knowing your numbers, you actually essentially you cost a couple of employees their jobs because of that, right? If you had have known better to raise the pricing earlier, that would have happened. So I bring that out not to be like, oh, David, don't stuffed up, but to highlight the point, because that's so easy to have happen, where you can work really hard and you can be thinking that you're doing the right thing and you don't want to charge too much. But if you're not charging enough, that's not a good thing, because the consequences, the results of that will have negative impacts for people. And your business, as a family business at its core, as David just highlighted, it has to you have to like prioritize the family. So the first impacts of those kinds of actions are going to start from the outside in, and so it's going to hit your employees and their families before it hits yours, just because of the nature of the ship, right? The next question that I wanted to ask you was kind of going back to, you said about the meat on the bone comment with the coaching and why the other program didn't work. It kind of made me think of with kids, when if a kid has a tantrum, they say, you have to bring your calm to their chaos, right? And
good.
You described your business as being on fire and everything's going all over the place. And then you had one coach who was just like suggesting bits and pieces of this and that, and another coach that was just really disorganized. And so because there wasn't a really structured framework, there was no calm being brought to your chaos. It was like maybe more competent chaos, possibly, I don't know, but it was still a bit of chaos. So what do you think the real importance of a framework is with regards to the coaching that was successful for you?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, even God gives us a framework for life. So if it's good enough for God, and giving us his word and giving us Jesus, and I believe that we should have frameworks with everything, and there's a quote I heard that, well, regarding the raising of children, children thrive in structure, and they don't thrive in chaos. Nobody thrives in chaos. And so I think it is so important to have a really clear system that you can work from. And honestly, when you're early in business, especially anything under $100,000 in revenue, knowing what to do and when to do it is so important. It's critical. Like you can, for example, one thing that is really important that I coach all of my students is increasing their client frequency, right? But that's not the first thing that we do, because if your pricing is off and we go out and do a bunch of marketing and we get 100 more clients to give you money at 50% lower rates than we should be charging, well, that doesn't help anyone. And we've basically grown your business almost into the ground instead of up. And so it's a big problem. And so we have to know what problem to fix first. And I think that is actually one of the most critical, could I say, skills that a coach can bring to the table, and knowing what those first steps are. And so as part of FRAP, we always go for pricing first. We got to fix your pricing first so that it's profitable. Your business is profitable. And then we build on that foundation. Next is average ticket, selling packages, having a clear sales process. That like my students on average increase their average ticket by 30 to 90%, just from selling packages. And so then now the business is even more profitable, right? So we want to add profit from day one. and grow from there,
Mm.
right? So I think that that's another thing that was like
Yeah.
lacking in our case was, yeah, it felt like it was this hodgepodge. Like, here's a bunch of ideas and here's a dashboard to track stuff, and it's like, okay, but like it's not working.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. What 100%. So just to give a quick FRAP recap. So FRAP stands for frequency, referrals, average ticket, and price. And FRAP is implemented
mhm.
backwards, but just not called PAF because that's disgusting. So and the importance of that is the difference in how those things function, right? As David's just highlighted, if you increase the frequency or you increase the referrals or you increase the average ticket, all of those things add to your business by giving you more work so that you can get more money. But if the pricing is wrong, then you're giving yourself more work. And just to go back to David's nightmare example earlier, if you're working the 60 to 80 hours a
Mhm.
week and the pricing model is not effective, and then you add in more work, frequency, referrals, average ticket, and you're selling more jobs, you're selling more stuff, more services per job, all that sort of thing. But fundamentally, the pricing is not fixed. Then all you're going to do is accelerate your rate of decline because you're expending money on like the cost of goods sold and everything and all of that without actually having the pricing set up in such a way as to make money. So context on that, I just wanted to like tie a little bow around that because we've kind of danced around the subject a little bit of what FRAP is and the application and all of that. But back to the frameworks that you had in your business, you mentioned when we were talking pre-call that looking back at the shifts that happened over that 4-year period when you were getting
Mhm.
coaching in particular, you can actually see the patterns of FRAP emerging in that time,
Mhm.
even though that's not the framework that you were working with at the time.
Mhm.
So maybe talk about that a little bit about how those things just were principally true.
Yeah, so good. So, after you sell a business, you have an opportunity to do a lot of reflection. And so I really did spend about 12 months thinking a lot about what happened in my business, what went well, what went poorly, what lessons could I learn, identifying milestones that I maybe hadn't tracked before and I didn't realize were there. And without a doubt, we followed FRAP principles without even realizing that that's what they were at the time. So we fixed our pricing like almost immediately, and got that in line. And to be fair, and I want to say this for the listeners too, like if you're out there and you're like beating yourself up or something, please don't do that. Like the truth is we don't know what we don't know. And the reason why my pricing was terrible is because I didn't even know what market rate should be. Like I didn't know what my competitors were charging. I didn't know to call my competitors and like ask about the like we just didn't know. There's so much we didn't know. But we fixed our pricing first, and then almost simultaneously, like probably within the next week, we started selling three clear packages. And if you're not familiar, selling packages is one of the best ways to make your company more profitable. It also turns all of your conversations from a yes or no, would you like my services, to a which one should I buy conversation. You always want to have a menu. And so
Yeah.
those two moves right there.
Yeah, if you have yes or no, sorry, I was just going to
Yeah.
underline that. If you have yes or no, then it's an
Yep. Yep.
ultimatum, right? And just by adding three options, you've now given them three yeses to pick from and only one no
Hmm.
still. Yeah,
No,
carry on,
yeah,
David.
it's so good. And there's just such a psychological difference, and it feels different. You're actually doing a disservice to your customer when you have a yes or no conversation because it's awkward for them. So if it's like, here's some options, which one sounds good to you? That's like a actually less pressure than like a yes or no kind of thing. And but when we made those two moves right there, we literally doubled our revenue in 3 months. And looking back, like that's still amazing to me. Um, then we started adding automation. We got a new website. We got like a CRM, and we started to add more digital aspects to our world, which really helped a lot, even more than I realized that they would. So we ended up quadrupling within those first 4 years. Um, And during that time, we also got really serious about um, generating Google reviews, and that was something that I was very passionate about in my business. In fact, I was sitting on my couch. I can still remember it. I was sitting on my couch one day, and I thought, you know what? One day I want to be the number one rated maid service in our service area. I thought, how long will that take? Probably about 10 years. But if I don't start today, it'll never happen. So I was like, I might as well start now because I want that to be true one day. And I put my nose down. We got to work. We had all these, fun things we'd do with our employees and contests, who could get the most Google reviews each month. And we'd give out like $50 gift cards and stuff. And we had all these systems around it. And one day I looked up and it was like 2 years later, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're number one." I didn't even realize it. I wasn't even tracking it, but just because I had the habits installed in my business, we became number one and beat out our competition of like 30 years. We were like the new kids on the block. And I was so proud of that. And after that, I told everybody who I talked to on the phone, we're the number one rated maid service in the whole area. And it feels so good to say something like that because it's a big accomplishment, and it gives you so much more credibility. So that's the R, the referrals. So there's direct referrals, indirect referrals, and Google reviews or testimonials is just one of those pieces. And um, you know so we did those things, and of course we got with automations, we got a lot more serious about frequency, getting recurring clients, and just making that easier through automation and sales scripts and stuff. So yeah, I mean, Frap is amazing. It works, and it really helps you, gives you a clear path of what order should I implement these things in my business. Like what things should I work on first, because that can be very confusing. And Frap really solves that problem for you.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Um, oh man, there's like so many things I wanted to I wanted to come back to. One thing, this is like a little side point, but we're just going to go on this side quest for a moment. You mentioned about the value addition of having package options and how that better informs the conversation with the client, and it's less awkward and all of that. And before that, you had mentioned when you were maybe like brand new, you were basically just saying, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, which sounds like the kind of thing that's really helpful. Like, hey, someone that's going to do whatever I want, and I can get them in and they're gonna clean this, they're gonna do that, and they'll do whatever exactly how I want it. One of the things that happens with that, because it's not just like the yes or no pricing, it's this, that's almost, we could call it like maybe
Yeah,
pricing
absolutely.
of I will just do anything and the scope of work isn't clear, and it requires the client to then define what the scope of work is. So it's actually more work for them to tell you what they want than if you
Yeah.
give them like a menu of services and say, hey, package A includes, this, and this. So they look at that and they go, yeah, I want 4 out of those 5 things. Let's just do that. And then it takes the decision load off them. But also if it's that kind of maybe conversation, and I'm curious on your experience with this, David, it can kind of muddy the waters of it's funny how it is just less valuable to not define the scope, right? I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on why that is, why it's less, there's less perceived value to a client when you say, I'll do whatever, than when you present them with options that say, we can do this, this, or this.
Right. Well, just imagine if I was trying to sell you a watch, okay? And I said, Mark, I've got this watch, and I think it's brown. Sometimes it's kind of black, but it depends on which light you're in. And then the band, it's really comfortable. You're gonna love the band. The band is great. What kind of band is it, David? Um, well, it's got some sparkles, and it's a metal band. And then the face, you're gonna love the face. It's kind of round, but it's kind of like square at the same time, and it tells time. Like, and you're like, okay, David, how much is this watch? It's $150. Actually, you know what? I'll give it to you for 75, because that's what we do, right? We're like, I need a sale, and so we just like give a random discount out of thin air.
Yeah. Or how much do you think the watch should be
Yeah,
worth?
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you, yeah. And you're like, well, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm not really even sure what I'm buying. So you can see clearly from that. Like if you're trying to sell retail and it's ambiguous and people don't know what they're buying, like
Mm,
how do you put a value on that? But if I'm like, Mark, I've got
yeah.
I've
I
got
think
this amazing watch, and it was actually designed by these the top Swiss watchmakers. It's got a oval face, so it's like very unique. It's got one of those. I wish I could remember all my lingo. It's a quartz timepiece. It's self winding, so you're never gonna have to like worry about having a battery. It's heirloom quality. It's got a metal band that's adjustable. It's waterproof up to 50 meters. Like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, and I can like understand very rationally that like there's some value to this, right? And so I'm going to be willing to pay a higher price.
I feel like this is a great example with the watch because fundamentally, right, like the function of the watch is that it tells
Right.
time, right? And that's the thing if you look at it on a, from a utility standpoint, that's what it does. But then once you start to understand your customer and you start to understand that they don't just want the watch because it tells time, it's an accessory, it's how it looks, it's a status
Right.
symbol, it's all these other things. It's, it's the practicality, like the waterproof up to 50 meters, right? It's like maybe they're never actually going to take it in the water, but I want to
Sure.
have the option, I want to not worry about it, like whilst
Yeah.
I'm, in the shower or something, right? So all of those things, that's the same when it comes to cleaning,
Yeah.
right? It's not about telling the time. Yes, they want the house to be cleaned. They want the practical outcome, but there's all of these other things going on in the
Mm-hmm.
background, and some of those are the same, like the status and all of that. Some of it is just like what they're doing with the time
Yep.
instead. Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that, David, in terms of like why people buy services? Like what? Yeah. You go.
Yeah, no, everything you said is great, and even the waterproofing, for example, is a guarantee. That's a type of guarantee, and it's like a lot of times we don't even have a guarantee, or our
Mm,
guarantee is like everybody else's. Oh, if you don't love it, your money back, or 100% satisfaction guarantee, blah blah blah. We've been hearing that for 100 years, and nobody
mm.
cares. So what if instead it's
The tin of beans from the supermarket literally has a satisfaction guarantee on the back with a number that you can call. But have you ever called the number? Like, were you ever not 100% satisfied with your beans?
That's so true. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, but if your guarantee feels like if you're like, listen, if you don't feel like the cleaning that we gave you was worth double the price that you paid for it, then we will clean your house every week for the next month. I'm just throwing something out there. That's extreme, right? Um, but it helps a lot when you have specificity. It helps people make decisions. It
Mm,
gives them comfort. Another thing that I remember in our business is when I did start to sell packages, and I literally read off a checklist over the phone. I repeated the checklist every time. We're gonna clean your house top to bottom, wipe down all the baseboards and the ceiling fans and blah blah blah. And we go through this whole thing, and I was selling them a product. I was no longer selling them my cleaning services. I was selling them a product. We even had a name for it. And what I noticed was we had a lot less complaints. It was so much easier to deliver on. It was not confusing for our technicians. That's another thing is you have to think about the people that you train. See, we get in this owner operator mentality, and it's just like,
mm,
I love my customers and I would do anything for them. And the truth is, like, they won't do anything for you. Like, there is a transaction happening. And yes, we have relationships and we love people, and I love my customers, but like I've got a family and I need to take care of my family, and then my employees, they have families and I need to pay them well. And after I pay them really, really well, like we paid our employees literally 2 to 3 times what other cleaners were making in our market. So I pay them really well, and then I need to have enough to pay myself well so I can take care of my family. So, gosh, I forget exactly where I was going with all that. But basically,
just the extent you're going to for the customer and how that makes it more difficult for your team if the scope is not clear is I think where you're
yes,
headed.
yeah. So training becomes so much easier, and as an owner operator, we get in this trap of just doing anything and everything for our clients, thinking that that's wonderful and we're wonderful for it. And then we try to hire our first employee, and they're frustrated out the wazoo because you customized your business to death, and no one can live up to the expectation that you've set even for yourself. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably do all these wonderful, amazing, magical, mysterious things for your customers for the first 2 to 3 months because you didn't sell them anything concrete in the first place. You sort of sold them this ambiguous, I'm going to, make your life amazing thing and do all these wonderful things. And then after a while, you even stop like doing stuff, and then they get displeased. And so when you have a really clear checklist,
Yeah, I was gonna say they're now anchored to that
yeah,
expectation, that you're just kind of going to do this exact bespoke thing for them. And we have found with that when a client requests really specific, they want it this way, not that, they want this room done but not that room, and blah 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 blah. It does make the job so much more complicated, and we have a lot more issues with those kinds of jobs. But the other thing that so it actually just on the customer service side, it's not as good because like they are more likely to have a problem with it because it's harder to deliver on. But the other thing with the package framing of the pricing and presentation of pricing is that helps to eliminate that a lot, and that then allows you to deliver a better service, because if you have options, A, B, and C that your team are trained on, and they know, okay, well, this means I'm going through, I've got this equipment, I'm doing this scope of work, and away we go, we're done. It's really clear for them, so they're able to deliver at a higher level. It makes the conversation easier and everything for the customer. They have to think about less stuff. And one other like tiny little piece on the puzzle, which like this kind of I feel dovetails with what you were saying before, David, about like fixing the pricing before the frequency referrals average ticket, so that you're not creating more work for yourself, is the marketing push-pull effect. If your marketing is attracting the wrong kinds of customers that will always insist on changing the scope and trying to pick it apart and line item it and take out this one little thing, probably because they're price sensitive, then the marketing has to change as well. Your branding has to level up over time, so that you can get the easier customers to service, so that you can provide them the higher level service.
Yeah.
That's just some patterns I was seeing in what you were saying, and it's just like it's a really interesting topic. If you want to comment on that, great, go ahead. Otherwise, I was going to ask about like the next stage of the business and getting into the sale and everything. But yeah.
Well, I'll just end this section with to kind of piggyback on what you just said. People love specificity, and I actually at one point in our business, I took our core packages and I actually put them on our website, and I found that I was getting customers through SEO that would just find that one web page, and they would call us up and be like, I want the top to bottom deluxe ultimate. That sounds amazing. It's exactly what I need. And so they would sell themselves on the deal because they got to choose from a menu. It's like, it's just so simple, but so powerful, and it makes your business so much more profitable when you have specificity. It's easier to deliver on, like you said, it's easier to train. Everyone, literally everyone, is happier at the end of the day.
Yeah, because if you back to the watch thing, like imagine going to a watch website and you're like, I'm going to buy a watch, and you click on this website and it doesn't have a watch there for you to buy. It has the concept of a watch, and then you need to to reach out and contact their sales rep so they can talk to you more about this concept of a watch, and then maybe they can arrange a watch for you. That's kind of what happens a lot of the time with home
Yeah.
services. If there's not like that specific package pricing menu, it's like, yeah, this is the idea of cleaning. Do you like things to be clean? Well, yeah, but I'd like some specific things to be
Yeah.
clean. Like, I want to know what's included and how much it is, and that all those same kinds of questions that the customer needs to answer those questions. They literally cannot buy from you if they don't have
Yeah.
answers to those
Yeah.
questions. So just like formatting this into a structure that allows for that. Yeah. So David, onto the sale
Mhm.
of the business, like transitioning. First of all, like, was there anything specific that prompted you to go, okay, like, we want to sell this, now's the time for us to do that? And then what was the process like? Hey, it's Future Mark here, jumping in because I'm excited to share with you that Aubrey and I just finished the 5-day Freedom and Profit Quest. There are still 17 free spots left on the sign-up page, and listen to what Aubrey said when I asked him if he would take $15,000 in exchange for not doing the 5 days.
15,000, not do the 5 days? Nah, not a chance. This 5 days actually can unlock that 15,000 for me in a space of success, so not a chance. With that 5 days with you can be 15,000 a week. Or we've identified ways of which I could get at least 9 to 10 hours back in every week, which I can spend doing whatever I want with my family. We've also identified the ways in which I can achieve at least $150,000 additional profits, which could help, when I'm spending time with the kids. They eat a lot of ice cream. If you haven't done the Freedom of Profit Challenge with Mark, that's over 5 days, you're missing out. Mark, business mentor, and I'll call a friend as well. What I love and appreciate about Mark is every single thing that we spoke about, every question that he asked came back to, hey, told me you wanted to spend time with the family, told me that you're doing this for your family. How does this help? Can you see how this doesn't help?
To hear Aubrey's full testimonial and to claim your free 5-day Freedom and Profit Quest, visit warplan.au/coffees and krakens. Link in the description. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. So David, onto the sale of the business, like transitioning. First of all, like, was there anything specific that prompted you to go, okay, like, we want to sell this, now's the time for us to do that? And then what was the process like?
Yeah, that's a great question. We honestly planned on always keeping our business. But it did get to a point where um, we didn't have quite the time freedom that we wanted. I mean, I was only working, it sounds kind of ridiculous in a way, but I was probably working about 15 hours a week uh, whenever we finally sold it. But my time was so broken up, and we were kind of getting to the place where we really wanted to be more involved in ministry, and we just wanted to take a leap. And when you sell a business, depending on how you structure it, it can be a little bit of a lump sum. There's just different things, and it kind of allows a different level of freedom that we wanted to be able to take the next step where we felt like God was leading us. And so we found a buyer pretty quickly, somebody that we knew through our network, and they were already wanting to buy other businesses, and they happened to already own a maid service. And so then there was a lot. It was scary because it's like, well, I've never done this before. I don't even know how to value my business. And so we had to do some learning, and there's different ways of valuing, really just probably two main different ways. So I had to learn about EBITDA. I had to learn about sellers' discretionary earnings and like how to do all this. And so it was a really cool experience. And I thought a lot about, after I sold it, uh, what was like the number one thing I learned from selling my business. And truthfully, I wish I had always run my business as if I was going to sell it, even though I thought I never would. And you'll hear that a lot. Like if you listen to business podcasts, you'll always, or especially talking to accountants and bookkeepers, run your business as if you're going to sell it one day. And I just didn't. And it's like there were little things in our finances that, because they weren't, just a little bit of sloppiness here and there, can actually diminish your profit tremendously. Or let's say you're overpaying for softwares. I was software heavy in my company, and it's like all these little things that steal some of your profit changes the multiple that you can sell your business for tremendously. So even though we still, got a really good deal, it could have been even more, right? And that's something I think about. And another thing too is if you have the mindset that, hey, I could sell this business at any moment. I don't know. I don't know what could happen tomorrow. I might just wake up. I mean, literally, my wife and I were like this. I went to an event with Josh Latimer, actually, just kind of had a heart change about some things. I was talking with some friends. Also, I was kind of in some talks with some friends. Literally from like Friday to Tuesday, my wife and I had a conversation. It's like, bam, we're selling the business, and came out of nowhere. So, there's you'll be more profitable if you have the mindset that, hey, maybe one day I'll sell this, because you run a tighter ship. You're just going to run a tighter ship if you have that in the back of your head. And so that's one of the biggest things that I learned through that whole process.
Why do you think that is? Because like it's true, it's
Yeah.
100% true, but it's interesting that like recently I did an episode where I was talking about like how people will take better care of others, or like the take better care of their pets than themselves. Like Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, he references that study about people on kidney dialysis, right? And they're more likely to skip their anti-rejection medication and risk having to like this whole process again. They're more likely to do that than they are to like skip medication for their pets.
Mm.
And running a business as though you might want to sell it
Yeah.
is essentially preparing your business to be in the best possible shape for someone
Right.
else. And we're more likely to do that than to just literally run our business in its best possible shape because it's our
Yeah.
business. So what do you think is going on there?
It's a really interesting question, and this is something I've become more aware of with myself the last couple years. Is how am I motivated by pain, or am I motivated by pleasure? Or am I motivated by just trying to avoid pain, right? And I think if most of us are honest with ourselves, we run a lot of our lives just trying to avoid pain, but we're really not going 100% after pleasure. What is best for us? What's best for our family? We're just like, some people call it the golden handcuffs. Like sometimes it feels like it's good enough, right? And we just settle and we get comfortable, and we don't look at our P&L enough, or we think, like I did this in my business. I looked at my P&L like very regularly. Like I looked at it all the time, and still had the mindset that there's nothing more I can cut out of my budget. I need that tool, even though it doesn't really do all that much. I just need it. I'm afraid to be without it. A lot of times we're just motivated by fear. And but if you really take like the profit first concept seriously, and you take your personal profit more seriously, you start to think differently. Okay, I can live without this thing. I can be creative. I don't have to pay $99 a month for that tool. Doesn't change my life. So I'm going to figure out a different way to do it. And I've done that with my own business, and I'm currently in my coaching business recently, where I cut out different tools, and it's like, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. I'm going to just enjoy more profit in the business because I don't need all these other things. And I think sometimes we're just afraid to do that. I don't know why. It's kind of like almost not hoarding. That sounds very extreme. But it's like Like all these books back here. Like I love books. I love to read, but like I probably don't need all those books. I can get rid of some of them. You know what I mean? Eh, It's just like we hold on to things because we're afraid to let go. And sometimes being a minimalist has tremendous benefits at creating more space in your life. And being minimalist in business means creating more space in your budget so that you can enjoy profit and grow more and not have that golden handcuff mentality.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I'm hearing a lot of this, and I'm thinking it really relates to like identity ranges
Hmm.
as well. Like we might want to we think of ourselves as being really rational beings, but we're actually feeling beings that think, not the other way around.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
when the profit starts coming through, and we have this sort of identity range of who we are and how we interact with our finances and whatever, subconsciously we'll just find additional expenses to add. We'll find a thing to, oh yeah, well, like now we can afford that other thing, and it's not really necessarily made for the rational reason. Like we rationalize it, but it's behind that, underpinning that is just this, oh well, I don't need to have that additional money coming through, or whatever it is. Like that money that quickly needs to go into someone else's pocket. Another one that I had a series of sort of, it was an unintentional trilogy of podcast episodes. I think the first one was called either the new devil at every level, or it was wants does not equal desires. It was one of those episodes. It was the first of the three, and the wants doesn't equal desires thing is a really interesting concept, because diving into that, I feel like there's a lot of overlap with this, where it's literally different regions of the brain. So when we're thinking about, like you were talking about, like pain and pleasure, right? When we're thinking about, I want this thing, it's like this immediate, like I have a lack of this thing and I need to fix that problem now. It's like it's an immediate pain kind of centered reaction, and it's very in the now. Whereas desiring something is reaching forward to something in the future. It's this big outcome, and in between those two things is this ravine of discomfort, and the wants want to stay on this side of the discomfort. They don't want to cross over. But everything that you desire is on the other side of the discomfort, which I just think is like a really fascinating concept. And I wasn't really intending on going on that little rant, but it just relates so well, dovetails really nicely with everything that you just said. And yeah. Um,
Yeah, no, it's so true.
so all of that said, we're running a little bit over time. I don't know how time conscious you are on your end, David, and I'm
I'm
conscious of not
fine.
taking up too much of yours. Great. So from that point, we've sort of touched on like the sale of the business and things that you've, like lessons you've learned reflectively from that. Bring us from there up until now, with what's going on and what you're seeing and how you can how those lessons are now helping you with your coaching
Yeah.
clients.
Well, it's neat because sometimes you don't realize how much you've learned or processed or distilled when you've gone through an experience that someone else is going through, maybe presently, and you can help them and guide them through, the next 5 steps, so to speak, of their life or their journey. And I think all of us, in a sense, have areas where we could help somebody right behind us help bring them through, where we just were. And so that's been very rewarding. Um, like I think I mentioned earlier, I have one of my clients I'm working with, his admin team is growing quickly because his business is growing, thankfully. And now he's having to learn a different set of leadership skills that he's never practiced before and he didn't need before. And so now sometimes I can see like there's this level of like, oh, what do I do right now? Like I'm so uncomfortable. And so then I'm able to bring to the table, okay, we're going to work through, how to effectively delegate. How to cast vision. Let's talk about your core values. This is what you need for hiring. Like and just having that certainty of having gone through a lot of those things, it's so much fun to be able to bring those things to the table and just be like, here's what you need. go do this. And it's like, then we follow up the next week. It's going so much better, like that was great. I learned that framework, and now things are good and we're able to move on to the next thing. So that's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that. I'm a teacher at heart. Always have been. My entire career before this was teaching guitar for, I don't know, 20 years or something. And so I've always been a teacher, and I just love teaching anything.
Mm. I asked you this in relation to your coaching business. I didn't ask this in relation to your service business, but how long it had taken you to get to where you are, and how long it would take you if you had to repeat it. And so you're sort of like 2 years into your coaching journey, and you said if you had to start from zero, it would probably take you like 3 months to get to where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about with the maid service business? If you had to start a business tomorrow doing maid services, how long would it take you to get to $65,000 a
Yeah,
month?
that's a really good question. We had about 200 clients, 200 recurring clients when we sold our business, and then we would usually do anywhere from 20 to 40 one-time cleans in a month. So if I had to do it over again, I'd be really surprised if we couldn't do that in 1 year. What took us 6.5 years, looking back and just knowing everything from start to finish, I would be shocked if we couldn't do that in 1 year. I bet we could do it in even in like 4 to 6 months if we had to. I think we could do it so much faster. And it's just knowing, once you've kind of gone through all those different stages, it's just easier to just kind of pull the trigger on things.
Yeah, 100%. Like
Well, and just to finish that, like the thing that holds you back the most in business is really indecision. It's fear. It's not knowing
mm,
or being afraid to make the decision because you think this is going to work, but if you do this one thing, you're like, I'm not sure if it's going to really work. And that's the benefit of having a coach, of course, is you can borrow their confidence and just let them tell you, go do the thing. It's going to work. Trust me. And then you do it and it works, but yeah, but it is the indecision and the fear that really holds you back. And so if you don't have that, if you've already done it once, it's just so much easier. And that's again why I love having a coach.
yeah, yeah. Because when you're doing it the first time, you're like blazing the trail. You're hacking through the vines with the machete. You're tripping over the rocks and falling into the holes, and deciding whether you need to be going this way or that way or whatever. In order to re-walk that trail, it's like to the same level that you had previously reached. It's so easy, and this is would be the same for whoever's listening to this as well. Like whatever level your business is at, if you think about how long it's taking you to get to that level, and if you had to start again from zero, how long it would take you to get there, the time compression on that is
Yeah.
huge. And so having someone ahead of you that has walked that path to be able to tell you, yeah, like watch out for that rock, and there's those stripy snakes over there. You want
Right.
you want to steer clear of them. It's a huge impact.
Yeah. That's so true.
Um, so yeah, where to from here, David? What's next on your horizons?
Yeah, so really we're focused on just building up our client base right now, helping more people, um, getting on podcasts like this, having a lot of fun, just having conversations with friends and talking about business and teaching more. But one thing that I'm really focused on right now is developing um, just small trainings, mini trainings that people can really sink their teeth into and just get a measurable win, right? Like maybe you don't need, or maybe you're scared to pull the trigger on, a huge program or something. Um, but it's like if we can just get you a win in one specific area, then and you learn that one skill, then we can move on to another skill, get you another win, and help you stack those things. And so I'm working on some tools to do that right now. and just trying to help more people to really do things that are profitable, that are going to make profit in their business. Um, I mean, just as an
Mm.
example, like one of my students, we ran a Rainmaker campaign, and I'm working on a Rainmaker campaign training right now. But we ran a Rainmaker campaign in his irrigation business, and we took his past clients, ran this campaign to 150 people, not even his full email list, and he booked like $20,000 worth of work within 2 weeks, as opposed to just
Mm.
blowing money on Google ads, that weren't really working for him at the time. And um, so it's little moves
Mm.
like that. They're so simple that honestly anybody can do if you just have the right system. That makes your business so much more profitable and makes it more fun. Profit is like oxygen. When you don't have it, it's just not fun. It's
Yeah.
not fun to not be able to breathe.
Yeah, it's the only thing you can think about when you don't have it. Um, yeah, the that as well like kind of ties into the idea of like getting things done in the right order, because then once you have those things happening on the back end, like you have, yes, we've got this Rainmaker campaign that is proven it works and it's effective, and so we can run this particular one, maybe 6 times a year to different segments of the list, or however it works. We have this other thing going on, and all of that benefits every new lead that you get coming through the
Yeah.
business. But if you spend the money on the front end to get those leads and you don't have the systems on the back end to extract more value from them, it's just so much less
Mhm.
efficient, because it's more expensive to get those clients, and then you're not getting as much of a payoff from them on the back end.
Yeah.
Um, but what I found that's really interesting, just like on the psychological side of that, is that people leads are so sexy,
Right.
right? Leads, everyone wants to focus
Yeah.
on that. They want to focus on the front end, and then doing something on the back end. Oh yeah, customer follow up. That, yeah, I don't know. That's, the eyes roll and the shoulders drop.
Yeah.
But really, that's where the money is made, regardless of whether you have a lead flow problem or not.
Yeah. Yeah. For example, in maid service, you and I are both in maid service, and we would upsell our recurring clients on a deluxe deep clean twice a year. And I was actually surprised at how many people bought it, not once, because we'd run the campaign 2 or 3 times a year, depending. And a lot of times the same clients would buy it every 6 months. And they
Mm.
they they appreciated the value. They were willing to spend more money, like to keep their houses cleaner.
That's such a good one. That's such a good example, because this is like one of those things which is surprising to you before it happens, and then after it's just like, well, of course they did, because the people who bought it are the kinds of people who buy
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And the people who didn't are the kinds of
Sure.
people that don't. It's like when early. I know I'm not alone in this, but like our core like service offering that our business was like based around was window
Mm-hmm.
cleaning, and early on, you go out looking for jobs, and you'd pick the jobs, like whether it was like commercial or residential, you'd be looking for the ones with the dirty windows.
Mm.
But they're not the ones that want their
That's
windows
so
cleaned.
true.
It's the ones with the clean windows that care about having the
Yeah,
clean
it's
windows, right?
so true.
So it's the people that buy the deep clean are the people that buy the
Yep.
deep clean. Yeah.
Yeah, and they want it twice a year. I mean, amazing, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it's like that's what they care about. It's the identity thing, it's
so
the
true.
standards, it's all of that. It's like that's just what matters to them. It's their value alignment with the product.
So true.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much for your time. It's been great having you on, David. Any final closing thoughts? And also one other
Mhm.
question for you as well is included in that. Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I actually have an ebook on my website about the FRAP framework, and real case studies about how you can use it to literally double profits in your business within 12 months. I don't know if you knew this, Mark, but one of our colleagues, John Karmazin, he told me recently that he's got a $2 million pressure washing business, and they literally doubled the profit in their company in a 12-month period.
Mm.
They didn't grow their revenue. They didn't have to. They used FRAP to double profit, which is way more meaningful. Um, So,
Yeah. Yeah, John has actually been
okay,
on this
cool.
podcast, but he was on, I think, not long before they did the numbers on that and realized that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, which is a crazy one of the, just to like underscore that point of like why that is so different, aside from the fact that you actually get to keep the profit, you know, to keep
Yeah.
the revenue, is that it's inherently, if the revenue doesn't change but the profit doubles, the workload as a whole has not changed, and the profits and the take home has still doubled, and probably because like that's happened at the same time, the workload has actually probably reduced, which like kind of dovetails again with what you were saying at the start about like working less hard whilst making more money.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
carry on.
Absolutely. So anyway, we've got an ebook, or I have an ebook on my website that people can download for free. So if you go to my website, it's winningmadeeasy.io. So again, winningmadeeasy.io, and download that free ebook.
I'll put a link in the description as
Yeah,
well.
awesome. And I've got different tools, but to give away, I've got this morning I was actually doing a training on 3 different GPTs that I've trained on a lot of our frameworks to help people just produce better assets for their marketing and different things. So, if people want access to that, they can text me um, and get you access to those things. But yeah, would love to hear from anybody who wants help, needs help. Yeah, we're here to provide resources.
Yeah, awesome. I will be checking those out myself. I want to see what you've got going on in the ebook as well. So
Cool.
no, great. Thanks again very much for coming on, David. And yeah, we'll keep in touch.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Hey, you're a family-oriented business grower. You should join our free group for family-oriented business growers. It's like the perfect place for someone your size and shape. Join via warplan.au, link in the description, and whilst you're there you can book a free clarity call with me to help identify the next 3 dominoes you need to knock over in your business.